I used to think there was a limit to how invisible one person could feel. There isn't. At Harold's retirement party, they gave engraved watches to the sons, gold necklaces to the daughters, even framed letters for the grandkids. Then Sandra turned to me and said, "There's nothing for you. You're not real family." Handed me a tray, told me to pass drinks, like I was waitstaff. That's when it hit me. Family isn't who gives you a gift when it's easy. It's who stands up for you when it's hard. Before we dive in, where are you listening from right now? What's your story? Drop it in the comments. My name's Lena Harper, 34 years old. I've been married to Marcus for a decade. We've got a daughter, Maya, she's 7, all sparkle and soft curls, still small enough to believe every family has room for love. We live just outside Raleigh, in a town where everyone knows each other's dogs by name. Today was supposed to be about Harold, 40 years as a firefighter, 40 years running into burning buildings while other people ran out. Sandra rented out a banquet hall for him. Red and gold decorations, firehouse colors, photo collages from his rookie days to his last shift, a slideshow that Marcus and his brothers spent all morning setting up. It should have been a good day. But when your name doesn't carry weight in a family, you learn to brace for the cold from the start. Sandra made sure I knew where I stood. She never said it out loud, at least, not until today. But it was there. Every holiday dinner where she smiled past me. Every family group text where my name wasn't included. Every time she'd remind me, sweet as honey, Harold has children of his own. Dear. When I slipped and called him Dad, Marcus would tell me not to take it personally. She's just like that, he'd say, cold with everyone. But it wasn't true. She wasn't cold with Ashley's husband or with Marcus's siblings. She gushed over promotions, hosted baby showers, planned surprise parties. She just skipped me. The only one who never made me feel like an afterthought was Harold. He's not the kind of man to make grand speeches, but he shows up in other ways. Fixing the leaky faucet in our first apartment, teaching Maya how to bait a hook, calling her his little spark plug, remembering my birthday when no one else did. Quiet kindness. No fanfare, just steady, present. That morning, before the party, I stood in front of the mirror longer than I needed to. Not to adjust my dress, not to perfect my makeup. I was trying to breathe. I told myself, today's not about you. Lena, don't make it about you. But there was a weight on my chest, not nerves history. I had finished a scrapbook for Harold, spent weeks on it. Pictures of him and Maya at the lake, in the garden, curled up watching football. Little drawings Maya had made, notes she dictated for me to write. At the very end, I added a letter, a thank you, for treating me like I was worth knowing, for making space for me in a family that never really opened the door. I didn't tell Marcus about the letter. It was between Harold and me. Maya twirled around the living room in her sparkly shoes. Do you think Grandpa will cry when he sees it? Maybe, I said, forcing a smile, but happy tears. We got to the hall early. Marcus went off with his brothers to handle the tech stuff. I stayed with Maya, her small hand tucked in mine, greeting people I barely knew. No one asked how I was. They smiled at Maya, hugged her, complimented her dress. Me, I was scenery, furniture. Sandra glided through the room, all charm and command, delegating tasks, shaking hands, kissing cheeks. When she passed me, she paused just long enough to glance at Maya. Try to keep her from smudging the tablecloths. Okay, Maya wasn't doing anything but standing beside me. I nodded. It would have been easier to stay home. But I came for Harold. I kept hearing my mother's voice in my head. Some people will never see your worth, but the right ones don't need convincing. My mom passed before she met Marcus, never got to hold Maya. But I think she would have liked Harold. As the hall filled up, I watched people slip into roles they wore so easily. The golden children, the perfect in-laws, the ones who belonged without question. I told myself it didn't matter, but deep down, I hoped today might be different. After lunch, the speeches began. Harold's old firehouse buddies told stories that had everyone laughing and wiping their eyes. Marcus spoke next, talked about how his dad taught him that strength isn't loud, that the ones who show up without needing credit are the ones who really matter. He didn't say my name, but for a second, I felt seen. Then came the gifts. A long table wheeled to the front. Dozens of packages, each wrapped meticulously, names written in gold ink. Sandra took the mic. We wanted to honor the people who stood beside Harold all these years. She called the sons first, watches in oak boxes, each with a note. The daughters next, gold necklaces with fire emblems, hugs, whispers, photo ops. Then the grandchildren, framed letters from Harold, trinkets, old coins, Bible bookmarks taped to the back. Maya watched with wide eyes. I think I'll get one too, she whispered. I squeezed her hand. I didn't know, but I hoped. Sandra's voice cut through the applause. And that concludes the gifting. Let's give one more round of applause to our hero, Harold Harper. That was it. No Maya, no me. My stomach dropped. Maya looked confused. Mommy, didn't we get anything before I could answer? Sandra was in front of me, tray in hand, smile razor sharp. Here, she said. Make yourself useful. She pressed the tray into my hands. I stood there, frozen. The tray was cold. 10 untouched glasses of champagne. The room felt hotter than it was. My cheeks burned. I looked at Marcus. He was mid-clap, mouth slightly open, saying nothing. No one said anything. A few looked away. Most avoided eye contact. I crouched down beside Maya. It's fine, sweetheart. It doesn't matter. But it did. It mattered. 10 years of birthdays, barbecues, baby showers. 10 years of setting tables, cleaning up after guests, showing up. And in one gesture, Sandra had summed it up. I was the help. I handed the tray off to a passing waiter, took Maya's hand, and I started walking toward the door. That was supposed to be the end of my story. But Harold wasn't finished. It wasn't the first time Sandra had made sure I knew my place. She never said it outright, not until today, but every subtle cut added up. The way she'd hand Marcus an invitation and say, "Be sure to tell Lena." The way she'd smile for family photos, then suggest I help in the kitchen. 100 little reminders that I was temporary, an outsider by marriage, not real Harper blood. For 10 years, I kept showing up anyway. Every birthday, every graduation, every backyard barbecue, I'd bring a homemade dish, help set the table, clean up after everyone left. Part of me thought, if I keep showing up, maybe they'll see me. Maybe I'll stop being the invisible one. But history has a way of repeating itself. This party Harold's retirement celebration should have been different. For once. It wasn't about Sandra's spotlight. It was Harold's day. 40 years of service. 40 years of running toward fires. So, I made something special. A scrapbook. Weeks of gathering photos of Harold and Maya fishing trips, garden afternoons, football Sundays. Maya added her drawings, dictated little notes for me to write. At the end, I included a letter of my own, a thank you, for seeing me when no one else did. I didn't tell Marcus. It wasn't for him to know. It was between Harold and me. That morning, before we left, Maya twirled around the living room in sparkly shoes. Do you think Grandpa will cry when he sees it? Maybe? I smiled, but happy tears. We arrived early. Marcus went off to help his brothers with the slideshow. I stayed back, holding Maya's hand, making small talk with people who barely looked my way. No one asked how I was. They hugged Maya, complimented her curls. But me, I was furniture, a coat rack. Sandra floated through the hall like a campaign trail queen, shaking hands, laughing too loud, giving orders. When she passed by us, she shot a tight smile. Try to keep Maya from smudging the tablecloths. All right, Maya was standing perfectly still. I nodded anyway. I wasn't surprised, but it still stung. My mother used to say, "Some people will never see your worth. The right ones don't need convincing." She never got to meet Marcus, never held Maya. But I think she'd have liked Harold. Quiet people recognize their own. The hall filled up. The slideshow started. Old photos of Harold in his firehouse days, stories from his buddies, the funny, the heroic, the ones that made people wipe their eyes. Then Marcus took the mic. He spoke about his dad's quiet strength, how the loudest heroes are often the ones who don't say much at all. He didn't mention me, but when he said, "Dad taught me the ones who show up, without needing credit, are the strongest," I felt it. Just for a moment, I felt seen. Then came the gifts. A long table rolled to the front. Dozens of packages, wrapped in crisp paper, names in gold ink. Sandra took center stage. "We wanted to honor those who stood beside Harold all these years," she said, voice bright and polished, one by one. She called names. The sons received engraved watches, heavy oak boxes with notes about carrying the Harper name with pride. The daughters got gold necklaces with firehouse emblems, hugs, whispers, photos for social media. Then the grandchildren, framed letters from Harold, little keepsakes, old coins, Bible bookmarks, personal touches that showed thoughtfulness. Maya's eyes sparkled. "I think I'll get one." "Two," she whispered, legs swinging under her chair. I squeezed her hand. I hoped. Harold had always remembered her, remembered me. Surely. Today would be no different. But as the last name was called, Sandra clapped her hands. "That concludes the gifting. Let's give one more round of applause to our hero, Harold Harper." Applause filled the room. Maya's face fell. My stomach sank. I kept waiting. Maybe there was a mistake. Maybe someone had forgotten to call our names. Maybe Harold would step in. But then Sandra turned to me. Her smile vanished. She picked up a tray from a nearby table, walked straight toward me. "Here," she said, pressing it into my hands. "Make yourself useful. Start passing these out." On the tray, 10 untouched glasses of champagne. I froze. The metal was cold against my fingers. I looked around the room. Nobody said a word. A few shifted in their seats. Most avoided eye contact. I found Marcus in the crowd. He looked stunned, caught mid-clap. His mouth opened slightly, but nothing came out. Maya tugged my sleeve. "Mommy, didn't we get anything?" I crouched beside her, forcing my voice steady. "It's fine, sweetheart. It doesn't matter." But it did. It mattered more than I wanted it to. 10 years of being polite, being useful, thinking one day they'd see me. And Sandra had just made it clear to her. I was staff, help. The woman who married into the family but never belonged. The heat crept up my neck, across my cheeks. I stood up, handed the tray to a passing waiter without a word. Then I took Maya's hand, and we started walking toward the door. I could feel my heart pounding, not from anger, from something heavier. Shame. Maybe, or just the crushing weight of being invisible one time too many. I wasn't going to cry in front of Maya. I wasn't going to give Sandra the satisfaction. We were halfway to the exit when the microphone clicked on. Actually, Harold's voice cut through the room. "There's one thing I saved for last." I froze. My back was to the stage. Maya looked up at me, her small fingers squeezing mine tighter. For a moment, I thought maybe, just maybe this wasn't over yet. "Actually, there's one thing I saved for last." Harold's voice wasn't loud, but it carried. Years of commanding and burning buildings gave him a tone you couldn't ignore. I stopped walking. Every chair seemed to shift. Every conversation died mid-breath. He said it again, louder this time. There's one thing I saved for last. I turned around. Harold stood center stage, shoulders squared. In one hand, a small velvet box. Tucked under his other arm, the scrapbook, the one I had quietly given Marcus to pass along earlier, but Harold was holding it himself. His eyes found mine. He didn't glance at Sandra, didn't scan the crowd, just me. "Lena," he said, "would you come up here?" It wasn't a request. The hall went silent. I hesitated, my feet suddenly heavier than they'd ever been. Then Maya tugged my hand. "It's okay, Mommy. I'll go with you." So we walked together. The sound of our steps felt sharp against the hush. Every eye followed. Every breath seemed held. I didn't look at Sandra, but I could feel her glare. Hot, unblinking. When we reached the front, Harold crouched down to Maya's level. His whole face softened. "Hey there, spark plug," he said gently. "Would you stand with me while I talk to the grown-ups?" Maya beamed, nodded. Harold stood tall again, turning to face the room. The calm in his face sharpened into something solid. I've spent my life around people who believe family is proven by action, not blood, not names on a family tree, loyalty, presence, love. That's what counts. He paused, let the weight of his words settle. So today, I want to talk about someone who's shown me those things. Every day, for the last 10 years. I could feel my throat tighten. When Marcus brought Lena home, he continued. I wasn't sure what to think. She was quiet, polite to a fault. But I watched. I watched how she loved my son, how she raised their daughter, how she showed up for every event, every holiday, every moment, never asking for attention, never needing a thank you. He reached under his arm, pulling out the scrapbook. She gave me this today. It's filled with memories I'd forgotten, moments that mattered more than I realized, drawings from Maya, photos of fishing trips, letters that reminded me how deeply she's been part of this family, even when others didn't see it. The room was frozen. I could feel the shift small, but undeniable. This book is the most personal gift I've ever received, Harold said. It came from someone who didn't owe me anything, but gave me everything. Then he opened the velvet box. Inside was a delicate gold ring, small emerald in the center. Simple. Old. This belonged to my mother, Harold said. She wore it until the day she passed. Before she left, she told me, "Give this to the person who'll carry on my spirit, someone who sees people, who heals, not judges." He looked at me again. I've kept it for years, waiting for the right person. Today, I know exactly who it belongs to. Harold stepped forward, held the ring out to me. "Lena, you are my family. Not by marriage, not by obligation, by choice. And no one in this room gets to tell you otherwise." A breath I didn't know I was holding shattered in my chest. My hands trembled as I reached out. The ring was warmer than I expected, solid, heavy in a way that had nothing to do with weight. Behind me, the room held its breath. Sandra stood abruptly. Her chair scraped loud against the floor. Harold, this isn't the time. He raised his hand, didn't even look at her. "We're not doing this today." "Sandra." His voice was calm, but final. "This is a celebration, not a contest. If anyone here has a problem with what I just said, they're welcome to leave." No one moved. Sandra's lips pressed into a line. She sat back down slowly, staring hard at the floor. For the first time in 10 years, she had no words left. Then Marcus stood, crossed the room, climbed onto the stage. He stopped beside me, eyes full of something between guilt and pride. "I should have spoken up a long time ago," he said, voice low but clear. "You didn't deserve that. You never have. I'm sorry." I didn't answer right away. Not because I was angry, but because I was holding on to this moment, the one Harold had given me. I wasn't going to let anything cloud that. "You don't need to apologize," I said finally. "Just start noticing when it matters." He nodded. Not a big gesture, but honest. Then Maya, small but steady, reached for the microphone. Harold smiled, kneeling to help her hold it. "My mommy made the book," she said proudly, voice echoing through the hall. "She said love is what makes a family, and Grandpa said it too. So now we're the same." A ripple of laughter broke the tension. Soft applause followed. Warmer. Real. Harold kissed Maya's head gently. "I think that's the perfect way to end the speeches," he said. The music started up again. Conversations resumed, but something had shifted. I wasn't invisible anymore. People approached, offering hugs, kind words, quiet apologies. Marcus's brother came up, awkward, but sincere. "I never realized how much you did." I should have said something. Sandra kept her distance, floating on the edges, talking to anyone but me. And for the first time, I didn't care. That weight I'd carried of proving myself, of trying to earn a place, it cracked. Not gone, but fractured enough to breathe. Harold leaned toward me, voice low. "That ring is yours now. Lena, don't let anyone make you feel like you have to earn it." I slipped it onto my finger. It fit perfectly, like it had been waiting for me all along. For the rest of the afternoon, the party carried on like it was supposed to. Music, chatter, clinking glasses. On the surface, nothing had changed, but I had, and so had the room. People came up to me in ones and twos. Not a parade, not a scene, just quiet acknowledgments, a squeeze on the shoulder, a soft, "didn't realize." A few even said, "should have spoken up sooner." None of it was dramatic, but it was enough. Enough to feel like I wasn't just background noise anymore. Marcus stayed close. When his sister tried to loop him into another conversation that boxed me out, he pivoted, made space. "Lena was the one who organized Dad's birthday dinner last year," he said at one point, voice steady. A small thing. But it landed. I didn't need him to fight my battles, but noticing that mattered. Sandra kept her distance. She floated between tables, perfectly composed, never once coming near me. She smiled for photos, posed with guests, but she avoided my eyes like they burned. And you know what? That silence didn't hurt this time. For years, her coldness had felt like a wall I kept slamming into. Today, it just felt like distance, and distance I could live with. Harold stayed near Maya and me. We took pictures. He let Maya drag him onto the dance floor. She beamed, spinning in her sparkly shoes, while he shuffled along, laughing quietly. At one point, I caught him sitting off to the side, flipping through the scrapbook again. His fingers moved slowly, tracing Maya's drawings like they were delicate glass. Every page, handled with care, like it was sacred. Before we left, he pulled me aside. "You've been part of this family for years, Lena," he said. But today, I made sure no one could question it again. I smiled, feeling the weight of his words settle somewhere deep. "Thank you." He shook his head. "You didn't need my approval. You earned your place long before today. I just wanted them to see it, walking out into the evening air." I looked down at the ring on my finger. It wasn't flashy. It wasn't expensive by today's standards, but it held more value than anything I'd ever worn, because it wasn't about status or appearances. It was a symbol of being seen, really seen. Not as Marcus's wife, not as Maya's mother, not as the help, but as me. For the first time in 10 years, I didn't feel like I had to shrink myself to fit in. I stood taller that night, later, at home. I tucked Maya into bed. She was still glowing, recounting every moment to her stuffed animals. "Mommy, today was the best day," she said sleepily. For her, it had been. She didn't carry the scars I did. She didn't know the weight of being the outsider. She just saw her mom standing on a stage with her grandpa, being loved out loud. Once she drifted off, I sat on the edge of my bed, looked at the ring, turned it slowly between my fingers. I thought I might cry, but I didn't. Instead, I felt still, grounded in a way I hadn't known I needed. For so long, I'd believed that if I just gave enough time, effort, kindness, someone would give something back. That if I showed up, kept proving myself, eventually the walls would come down. But the truth is, you can't force belonging. You can't twist yourself into a shape that makes others comfortable and expect that to feel like home. Belonging happens when someone sees you. No conditions, no tests, no need to earn it. Harold saw me, not as a daughter-in-law, not as a guest, as a person, someone who had loved his family. Even when that love wasn't always returned, he didn't just give me a ring. He gave me back my place, my name. In a room where I'd spent a decade being her or Marcus's wife, he said Lena into a microphone, and he made sure they listened. In the weeks after, things shifted. Marcus started paying attention to the things I'd stopped voicing. When family conversations circled without me, he brought me in. When small dismissals came my way, he didn't brush them off anymore. He noticed. He didn't become a new person overnight, but he became a better partner. Harold's scrapbook found a permanent spot on his mantle. Every Sunday. He flips through it, says it reminds him that love doesn't need announcements. Sometimes it's quiet, steady, shown in pages, not podiums. Sandra never reached out. No call, no email, and honestly, I didn't expect her to. I wasn't waiting for an apology anymore. I had spent too long hoping for kindness from someone who viewed my existence as a threat. Her silence used to feel like a wound. Now, it felt like distance, and that was her choice to carry. Maya, in her innocent brilliance, started wearing one of the extra necklaces from the party. A cousin had given it to her as a spare. "Because we're all family now," she'd say proudly, and she was right, in the way that mattered. One afternoon, as I was folding laundry, Marcus came up behind me. He didn't say anything at first, just stood there, hands in his pockets. "I should have seen it sooner," he said quietly. "All those years." I looked at him. "You see it now?" He nodded. "Yeah, I do." And that was enough. Not perfect, not a fix, but a start. I used to think the goal was to be accepted by everyone, to earn a seat at a table that was never really set for me. But what I learned that day was different. You don't have to shrink yourself to fit into spaces that were never meant for you. When someone sees you, really sees you, that's where home begins. For me, it wasn't the gifts or the titles. It was Harold standing on that stage, holding out a small, old ring, saying, "Lena, you are my family," and for once I believed it. So now, I carry that ring. I carry Maya's hand, and I carry the truth of that moment. I am not an afterthought. I am not a guest in my own story. I am, and always have been, real family.